Hey there, and welcome to Code Academy. My name is Galena, and I'm a developer from New York. Today we'll be covering the Bookmarks freeform project, part of the Learn Ruby on Rails course. Now, before we get started, let's take a look at some of the concepts we'll be working with today. To complete this project, you'll need to be familiar with generating a model, adding string and integer columns to a table, migrations, the has many and belongs to association, and the Ruby each iterator. Great, now let's pull up our project and get started. Bookmarks. Bookmarks wants a Rails app for their bestseller list. Here's what it looks like. Books are listed by rank on the main page. Clicking on a book takes users to a page where they can read editorial reviews. And here's the application. We see books listed by rank, and we can also view editorial reviews for each book. To preview our app at any point in the terminal, type Rails s-p4001, and in the browser, visit localhost 4001. Rails S is the command to start a Rails server, -p is the port, and for this project, we'll be using 4001. Now let's jump right into step 1. Create a new Rails app named Bookmarks. Let's navigate to our code editor and use the Rails new command to generate a new Rails app. Great, now once that's done running, we can check off step 1 and move on to step 2. After we create the new app, switch to its folder. In the terminal, type cd bookmarks. So in the terminal, let's use the cd or change directory command to switch into bookmarks. Perfect. Now we're done with step 2. Let's move on to step 3. Install the gems in the gem file. To do that, we'll use the bundle install command. And once we see bundle complete, the gems have been installed successfully. So let's check off step 3 and move on to step 4. In the root directory of the project, we've provided the base HTML and CSS files for this project. Look at the bottom of your file navigator to locate them. So let's navigate to our code editor, and in the top left corner, click this folder icon to view our application and the base HTML and CSS files for this project. Let's put their contents in the correct place in your project. In your Rails project, create index.html.erb inside of books and views, and copy and paste the contents of the root index.html into that file. So let's navigate inside of our bookmarks application. Then in app and views, let's generate a new folder called books. Then inside that folder, we're going to use these 3 dots to generate a new file called index.html.erb. Now let's copy and paste the contents of index.html into our newly generated file. Let's just make this a bit wider. Now let's hit save. Perfect. Now let's create show.html.erb also in the books folder. So let's create a new file, show.html.erb, and let's copy the contents of show.html and paste them into this new file. Hit save. And similarly, we want to create books.css inside of the style sheets folder and copy the contents of the root bookmarks.css into it. So let's copy the contents of bookmarks.css and paste them inside of assets, style sheets, new file books.css, right in here. Hit save. And we've completed step 4. Now in step 5, open app views layouts application.html.erb and add the following lines immediately following the title tag. So let's navigate to views, layouts, application.html.erb, locate our title tag. Here it is, and we're going to add the following lines of code immediately after. Let's hit save. And we're ready for the next step. Add models and associations. Generate a model named book. Let's navigate to our terminal and use the Rails generate model command, followed by the name of the model, which is book. Perfect. So we've seen a number of files being generated. We're going to use the book.rb file as well as this migration file. And the name of the migration file is the timestamp of when it was created. Let's move on to step 7 and generate a model named review. Let's use the Rails generate model review command. And we see similar files generated here as well. In step 8, let's associate the book model with the review model using the has many and belongs to methods. Open up models book.rb. That would be right here. And add the has many method. Inside of our class, we want to add a has many method. A book has many reviews. Save. And then review.rb, add the belongs to method. So a review belongs to book. Awesome. Now let's move on to step number 9. Open the migration file in dbmigrate for the books table and add the following columns. Let's locate our migration file. And here it is, our books table. And let's add a string column called title, then a string column called author, a string column called publisher. Don't want this space. Then an integer column called weeks on list. So that would be t.integer weeks on list. And then another integer column called rank this week. So let's make sure we've got all of those added. A string column title, author, looks like I'm missing description, so let me just add that in. And now I think I'm good to go. Let's check off step 9, hit save. Let's get rid of some of this white space. And we're ready for the next step. Open the migration file for the reviews table. That would be the next migration file. Here it is. And add a string column called author and a string column called comment. Also add a references column to the book model. So that would be t.references. The references column is needed because the review model has a belongs to association with the book model. Great, now let's move on to step 11. Run a migration to update the database with the book model and review model. So in our terminal, let's run the rake db migrate command to update our database with all of the changes that we've made. Awesome, our migration was a success and we're ready for step 12. We've prepared a few items here to seed the database with books and reviews. Copy these items and paste them into your seeds.rb file. Let's click this link, select all, copy, and paste inside of seeds.rb. Let's hit save. We also want to create 2 more book records. Feel free to use your favorite books, then create review records associated with each book. In the interest of saving time, I've created these earlier, so I'm just going to paste them into the file. So before the reviews, I'm going to add 2 more books. Here we have book 8, book 9, book 10, and I'm going to add book 11 and 12, and also review records for each book. Let's hit save, check off step 12, and we're ready for step 11. Run rake dbc to seed the database with the data in seeds.rb. Let's navigate to our terminal and use the rake db seed command to seed the database. Great, now we're ready to add controller and routes. Generate a controller named books. Let's use the Rails generate controller command, followed by books. Then in the routes file, add the resource route for the books controller. So let's locate our routes file inside of config. And here it is. And now let's add the resource route for the books controller. That would be resources. Let's hit save and check off step 15. Run the rake routes command in the terminal to view all of the new URLs that the resource route created. Let's run rake routes. We need an action to display a list of all books and another action to display a specific book. Looking at the Rails 7 standard controller actions, we can use books index and books show. Now let's recall our 7 standard controller actions, which include index, show, new, create, edit, update, and destroy. We'll be using index to display a list of messages and show to display a specific message. Next, we want to add controller actions and views. Set up the books index controller action. In the books controller, make an action named index that retrieves all books from the database and saves it into a variable named books. Let's navigate to our controller and set up an index method that retrieves all books from the database. So that would be def index. We want to save it into a variable named books. So that would be books book.all, since we're retrieving all the books from the database. Let's hit save. Then check out the view index.html.erb inside the books directory. We use the each iterator. So let's locate index.html.erb, and here it is on line 2. Our each iterator loops through each element in books. Finish the view to display a book's details. So in our application, we can see the rank, the title, the author, the publisher, the description, the reviews, and the weeks on list. And we can see this exact order set up in our HTML file right here. So first, let's display the book rank this week, then the title of the book, then the author of the book, the publisher, then the description, and lastly, the weeks on list. Book.weeks on list. And notice how I'm using the equal sign here, which means I want the result to be displayed. Now let's take a look at the rest of our code and see if we're missing anything. Looks like everything is set up correctly. Let's move on to the next step. In the routes file, set the index action as the root route. View the result by running your project. Let's navigate to the routes file inside of config and set the index action as the root route. So let's use the root keyword, and the index action is inside of our books controller, so it would be books index. Let's hit save. And we're ready to preview our app in the browser. Let's start a Rails server by typing Rails s-p 4001 and then visit localhost 4001 in the browser. Let's give it a second. Perfect. Here is our application and all of the books that we've added to the database. Great. Now let's set up the books show controller action to display our editorial reviews for each book. So in the books controller, make an action named show. Let's navigate to our books controller, and below index, generate a show action. First, we want to retrieve a single book and save it in this variable. So we would use book.find Rams ID. So we'll be sorting through the books by ID, and then we want to retrieve a book's reviews and save it in reviews. The has many belongs to association lets us query for reviews like this. Next, let's finish the view in show.html.erb. First, display a book's details again. Let's navigate to show.html.erb. So before our each iterator, let's display a book's details. So we have our book title, and we want to display the author, and the publisher, and the description. Then inside of the loop, display each review. So now we want to display the author of the review and also the comment itself, or just the review. Review.comment. Perfect. Then let's restart the Rails server and view the result by visiting localhost 4001. To do that, let's use the Control-C to shut down the Rails server and then start it up again. Visit localhost 4001 in the browser. And let's check the reviews. We can now see the review for each book and the author that it was written by. Let's check the other ones. Let's see Unbroken. And we can see the two authors and their reviews. Congratulations, we've completed a Ruby on Rails bookmarks application. We've utilized the has many and belongs to association to create a relationship between a book and a review model. We've also successfully added data to a database. We've used the controller to retrieve that data, and then the view to display it in any way that we like. I hope this walkthrough was helpful. I'll see you next time, and happy coding.